on the 13th of September 1943. After landing at Taranto in Italy, Allied intelligence came into contact with a prisoner who had escaped from a concentration camp at a place called Pisticci, about 60 miles behind Allied front lines. He reported the prisoners were soon going to be moved towards Germany, where they'll most likely be killed. Hearing of this, 2 SAS quickly put together a plan to rescue the prisoners and kill the camp guard. They faced a major problem, however, as there were 2 front lines and 100 kilometers of enemy territory between them and their targets. To do this, they raided the nearby town of Chiantona, hijacked one of the trains there, and then drove it through Axis territory to the concentration camp, where they killed the guards, loaded the prisoners onto the train, and then drove it back to Allied lines. As a plan fraught with danger, typical of the SAS, surprisingly little went wrong during the operation. The Italians were taken completely by surprise, as the prisoners were loaded onto the train, and they managed to extract themselves without incident. Most extraordinarily of all, this whole affair remained almost completely unknown, until very recently, when historian Damien Lewis was given access to the papers of Major Paddy Mayne, one of the founders of the SAS, who noted the raid in one innocuous paragraph. Situational context. During the late summer and autumn of 1943, as the Allies invaded Italy from the south, the Germans made preparations to withdraw and protect their southern borders, as faith in the Italian defence quickly faded. As part of this withdrawal was the relocation of prisoners to more secure territory. As Allied offences increased, however, the number of these prisoners rapidly increased, with space to house them rapidly decreasing. It was with this dilemma that the Nazis began to execute their captives at a much greater rate. This was also the case with the captured Jews of Europe, as the final solution was being put into action, with mass exterminations becoming frequent. At that time, the plight of those held in concentration camps across Europe was largely unknown to Allied commanders, but that all changed when an escapee from a camp managed to find the Allied headquarters in southern Italy, informing the officers that the prisoners were about to be transferred to another camp in Germany. The SAS had landed at Taranto on September 9th, 1943, 6 days after the start of the Allied invasion of Italy. Their task was to chase after the enemy, probe frontline positions, and help the main army beat a path through. Part of their covert remit was to rescue Allied POWs once the Italian armistice had been declared. The Yugoslav prisoner named Zelchko and informed the commandos about the Pisticci concentration camp, with them having no prior knowledge until after he broke out of it, as somehow made it to the Allied bridgehead. He informed them of the first Italian concentration camp, where freedom fighters, Jews, artists, intellectuals, and Catholic priests were incarcerated behind barbed wire. Zelchko said the prisoners were about to be moved to Germany, where there would be a human catastrophe. Within hours, a plan was hatched to mount an operation to liberate the camp, freeing those being held by the Italians. The commander of the raid was Major Oswald Carey Elwes, whose unit of SAS operatives, which carried out the mission, included a contingent from the French Foreign Legion, who had been recruited to the SAS by the regiment's founder, David Stirling. His plan for the prison break involved the hijacking of a train. They were to steam the train through 100 kilometers of enemy territory. After getting to the concentration camp, they would overcome the defences, load the train with all the inmates from the concentration camp, and steam the train back again. Who dares wins. The daring operation, involving 50 commandos, was masterminded by 2 SAS officer, Major Oswald Carey Elwes, and his French deputy, Raymond Corot, on September the 13th and 14th, 1943. British and French soldiers stormed the local railway station in Taranto to seize the locomotive. They drove it deep into Nazi-occupied territory to Pisticci concentration camp, where hundreds of prisoners, including Jewish civilians, were being kept in savage conditions. As per the plan that Major Carey Elwes hatched with Corot, the raid team reached the camp in order. Fortunately for 2 SAS, Corot had previously saved 2,000 Jews from the Gestapo in France by smuggling them out of the port of Marseille with the help of American socialite Mary Jane Gold. Upon reaching the camp, the raiding party burst out of the train and ambushed the Italian and German guards, giving 180 prisoners the chance to escape. The prisoners who could not fit in the train were told to hide in the mountainous terrain and lay low until the Allied soldiers who were fighting across Italy reached them. In support of the raid team, Major Cary Elwes and his patrol of 4 to 6 Willys jeeps stood guard at one of the crossroads en route west of Metaponto to hold the junction and railway crossing against all adversaries. The raid was so effective and successful that the soldiers even captured the Pisticci camp commander so that he could be brought to justice. Despite the mission being a remarkable success, it was purposefully kept secret and not reported in Britain. This is because of fears that were the concept of a concentration camp to become public knowledge, the outrage would be such that no enemy soldier would ever surrender, as there could be no way they would receive empathy. It was only after Bergen-Belsen concentration camp was liberated in April 1945, and this was documented by film crews, that they became known of in Britain. A hidden secret. This incredible story has been, at least until very recently, unknown beyond those who took part in the operation, and the Allied commanders who ordered it to be carried out. This story is brought to light by British historian Damien Lewis, who found confidential reports about it tucked away in the Kew archives. During an interview about the discovery of this story, Mr. Lewis said, "If you wrote this as a Hollywood movie outline, people would say, no, that's too far-fetched. But this absolutely happened. It's absolutely true." The daughter of Major Cary Elwes spoke to Lewis after he discovered the mission, but she had no idea about the rescue mission her father pulled off alongside other pioneers of the famed regiment. She said he did not talk about his wartime operations, but he did once tell her they learned how to drive locomotives during their training. He said he discovered the story of the raid after doing some research at Kew, which he did not believe at first, but then found another 2 SAS reports to corroborate it. "I have never come across anything like the train rescue operation, and it would have remained secret if I didn't stumble across it. The genius of the idea was typically SAS, and only their imagination and daring could make it possible. The camp guards were understandably completely taken by surprise by the audacity of it, and they managed to free 180 prisoners, sustaining only light injuries. In all, the mission resulted in the freeing of 180 Jewish civilians and other European prisoners from the concentration camp at Pisticci, and the capture of its commandant. Due to the secrecy of the mission, however, unfortunately none of the men involved in the mission were awarded commendations." Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a like. And for more amazing tales and thrilling stories, don't forget to subscribe to Uncovered Secrets. Also, hit the bell icon to stay notified for every release.